So, just like everyone else, I watched The Batman this weekend. And oh my god, was it good. And there are already reviews on this movie from people a lot smarter than I am. So, why listen to what I have to say on this movie? Well, for starters, this is not a review of The Batman. Actually, this is a review of The Batman. Ben Shapiro, the meme, the myth, the legend, himself made a review of this movie. Now, I don't know what a political commentator is doing reviewing movies, but it doesn't matter. I play video games, so what am I doing?
So last night I went and saw The Batman, went and saw it with my wife. It is 1 million hours long. And it's one of those movies where I started off and I was like, okay. And then I got a little further in. I was like, all right. And then I got to the end. I was like, meh. And then the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. And so you're about to hear a lot of hot takes on The Batman because I hate this movie.
Now, Ben rants for a little while, so I'll kind of skip ahead for a little bit and just explain quickly what he said in this amount of time that I skipped. He goes on to explain the things he likes about this film, and there's mainly three things he says that's good. Because he says, right in the beginning, even though there are things that he likes about this movie, there isn't a lot. One, he said that he very much enjoyed the look of this movie, which I agree, it looks beautiful. But everything he says he likes, he also has reasons to dislike. He says that even though he likes the looks of this movie, it's very red, orange, with mud. It's muddy. And for some reason, he says that it looks great, but he also gives reasons to dislike what it looks like, comparing it to the Joker. The second thing he says he likes is the scoring of the film, which was amazing, by the way. He personally says that it was okay for him, saying that it seems to be the exact same as The Dark Knight, which I'm sure he would just say that he liked The Dark Knight's scoring. So what makes it different? Basically, he's saying it's just the same. It's not different, it's just the same. The third thing he goes on to say that he liked, or that was okay, is the acting, which he immediately backtracks on and says this.
The acting is okay, as we'll find out in a second. They give Robert Pattinson nothing to do as Batman. Nothing to do as Batman.
Oh, this motherfucker even watch the fucking movie? Robert Pattinson spends the entire movie as Batman. There are probably 3 scenes he takes the mask off in. One in the beginning, one in the middle of the movie, and one towards the end of the movie. He stays as Batman the entire time because his version of Bruce Wayne is obsessed with Batman. Just like a lot of other versions of Batman, this Bruce Wayne is addicted. He is not just addicted, but it's like Bruce Wayne isn't the secret identity. It's like he's actually Batman pretending to be Bruce Wayne. A lot of Batmans go and do this, but I think Robert Pattinson does a really good job at showing off this fact to the character.
I didn't think that Zoe Kravitz had any sort of chemistry with Robert Pattinson. So she's fine. She's kind of flirty. Meh. I didn't see anything particularly wrong with her performance. I just didn't see a lot right with her performance.
Now, I've been seeing this a lot, and I kind of disagree. I think that Zoe Kravitz did pretty well, but whatever. I've been seeing that a lot of people share this opinion. I will say that I think that their relationship is perfect throughout the movie until the very end where it feels a little rushed, where Catwoman tells Batman to come with her. I think that kind of came out of nowhere. It didn't feel like they've known each other long enough for that to happen, but whatever. I think it was fine. I think she did great, personally. I think they did great together.
Paul Dano gives a good performance in the film, although he's sort of playing the Joker a little bit, although he's playing it more wide-eyed, as Paul Dano is apt to do. The main character of the film is the Riddler. And herein lies the main problem with the film. The biggest problem with the film is that the film hates Batman. Like the actual Batman character hates the Batman character. And this drives me up an absolute wall.
Every single good Batman movie's main character is the villain. For example, let's just look at a little known movie, The Dark Knight. The main character of that movie is the Joker. Then we also have Two-Face. The villains are always the main character. They steal the show. That's what makes them so good. We have a direct foil to the protagonist in every single way.
The biggest problem with the film is not the wokeness. Yes, there's some woke touches. You have Catwoman, who is a woman of color, who is, of course, good. And you have the black female mayor, who is good. And you have the black Jim Gordon, who is good. Every white character is apparently bad, like all of them. Fine, whatever. I don't really care about that. That's fine. You have Catwoman say stuff about white privileged elites. And
this is also something I've been seeing a lot of. The fact that there's some propaganda going on here that every white character in this movie is bad and every black character in this movie is good. So therefore, this movie is trying to say white people are bad, black people good, when what the fuck are you saying? For one, that's not even close to true. There are not a lot of characters in this movie, and most of the characters that are shown are white, and yes, a lot of them are corrupt officials. But those are also supposed to be a resemblance of the real world. For example, let's look at real-life cities. Who holds power in those real-life cities? There's a lot of fucking white people, Ben. I'm not even going to get political on you. You know that I'm right. It's just a lot of white people. Also, you named 3 good characters who happen to be black, when I can name 2 good characters who happen to be white, which is Bruce and Alfred. And tell me why there being one more good character that happens to be black is somehow it trying to portray this completely differently, saying that black people good, white people bad. But we also can't forget that while you were listing characters that happen to be black that are portrayed as good, let's not forget the fact that you mentioned Catwoman, who is also not a good person. At the very best, she's morally ambiguous. She has no qualms about murdering. She steals from people who you go on to say that you have an issue with. She is literally, her name comes from the joke of a cat burglar. It's a play on a cat burglar. You can't say that a cat burglar is a good person. Yes, she helps the hero, but she's an anti-hero.
And she makes a suggestion that Bruce Wayne, as a child, when his parents were killed, he doesn't really have a right to be super upset about that because, of course, he was very, very rich. That doesn't, kind of rings hollow. Now, a lot of these lines seem like throwaways for film lefty Twitter.
Now, I'll be honest, I feel like the white privilege line from Catwoman felt more in line with a joke, simply because not the concept itself is funny or a joke. I think it personally just came across as forced, but it doesn't matter. One line does not ruin a film for me, unlike someone like Ben Shapiro, I guess.
But the main theme is not a throwaway. The main theme is what matters here. The film despises Batman. So every Batman iteration has to explain why a man who is a billionaire would dress up like a bat and go around beating up criminals. It's not answered. And the director doesn't know. And the writer doesn't know. And this is the problem.
I disagree. I think that this entire movie is actually about Batman finding out why he actually does this. I think Bruce Wayne has an idea in his head of why he does what he does, but it takes the entire movie for him to realize, oh shit, I've been doing this all wrong. And you allude to this later, which is, I'll get to it when it comes up, but I will leave you with this open-ended question that I will answer when it comes up again. Ben Shapiro, why does Batman do what he does? Why does a billionaire go out and fight crime in the middle of the night?
So in the Nolan films, to take the contrast, the question as to why Batman does this is because if Batman does not actually intimidate the criminal underworld because the city is so corrupt, no one else will do it, and money isn't going to solve the problem. And so he needs to create a theatrical kind of fear in order to dissuade the criminal underworld from participating. And then, as it turns out, he also has to save the city itself and demonstrate his faith in the city by becoming a symbol. Here, you don't really know why Batman is doing what he's doing. It's never explained. He's very wealthy. He doesn't apparently do anything with his wealth. He doesn't try to give charity. He doesn't. I mean, this is actually made a plot point. He's a bad man because he's white. He's a bad white man who doesn't actually give charity. He's not involved, and he's not playing that as a role.
Yes and no. I'd argue that him not donating to charity, him not helping with his immense wealth, is actually distancing himself from someone who would help. For example, no one will assume that this dickhead who sits in his tower all day doing nothing with his money is Batman, the man risking his life every single night to protect the city. But then I would also say no. I think he also isn't doing it on purpose. Like I said earlier, Batman hates being Bruce Wayne. He considers Bruce Wayne a burden. He wants to be Batman 24/7. So no, he doesn't give a shit about the public image of Bruce Wayne. He does not help. He does what he does as Batman.
Again, this is part of the problem, is that Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same character. So if you, I keep using the Nolan comparison because it is the gold standard for all superhero movies, not just Batman movies. So when you look at Nolan's Batman, Bruce Wayne is the character that Batman is playing. Okay, Bruce Wayne is not real. Batman is real. Batman is who Bruce Wayne really is.
It's so weird that you have this fundamental, basic part of this character so down pat in your mind, and yet fail to understand why what you're explaining right now is exactly what I just explained to your previous comment.
And so he has to play a fop. In Batman Begins, he's squiring around ladies in his Lamborghini, and he's buying hotels, and he's doing all of this just to cover up for the fact that he is Batman. So you get very separate Batman and Bruce Wayne. You get the same thing actually with Michael Keaton. Batman and Bruce Wayne are two different characters. Here, Batman and Bruce Wayne are the exact same character. There are points where Bruce Wayne is walking around. He's got the same dour expression, same glazed look, same kind of emo thing going on as Batman does the entire movie. And so there's no dichotomy.
You're right. You're absolutely right, Ben. They are the same character. Maybe the guy who sits in the corner of the room and keeps to himself and hates going to public events because he hates being seen is the same character as the guy who demands attention the second he walks into the room. The second the Batman is on the scene, you know, and he won't let you forget it. While when Bruce Wayne walks in the room, he'd rather you not noticed he was there at all.
So here is the actual plot of the film. Batman has only been Batman for a couple of years, so he's not really good at Batmaning yet. And he is tracking down criminals, and he gets drawn into a plot by the Riddler. The Riddler is giving clues so that Batman can track down all the way through the system of Gotham, this citywide corruption that apparently is going to bring down the entire superstructure of faith in the city. Meanwhile, you have Catwoman, who's Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz. And Zoe Kravitz is similarly engaged in an attempt to commit a robbery against one of these underworld figures, but she's drawn into Batman's orbit by a murder that both of them are investigating at the same time, the murder of her roommate, maybe something more going on there.
Now, I don't know why right-leaning conservative Ben Shapiro would stray away from saying gay or dating here when referring to two women, but I won't. I will proudly say, Ben, they're gay. I don't know if they needed to outright fuck in front of you for you to understand that, but I mean, Selena walks into the house with her, and while comforting this roommate, in quotes, calls her babe. I feel like if that was a man she said that to, you would immediately assume that's a boyfriend, that's a husband, whatever. But I don't know. You, for some reason, were afraid of saying that. Also, for someone who seems to know a lot about Batman, or at least you think you do, you should probably know that even in the comics, Catwoman is bisexual. And even before it was outright confirmed, it was always alluded to in things like Poison Ivy, where there's always tension with Poison Ivy with Catwoman. Or even when she's giving up the mantle of Catwoman and she outright kisses the girl who she gives the mantle to. I mean, that's direct confirmation. She's fucking gay. I don't know where the issue is with saying that, but whatever.
The Riddler is the main villain of the movie. You see the Penguin a fair bit. Carmine Falcone is one of the big characters in the movie. You get a little bit of Alfred. Of course, you get Jim Gordon, whose main job in this film is apparently just to say Jesus over and over again.
Christ, it's Coulson.
Whenever something bad happens, he just goes, Jesus. And that happens like 6 times. Like Jim Gordon does nothing except for basically stop Batman from getting arrested a lot. That's pretty much all he does. He's a bad detective. He doesn't do anything.
Ben Shapiro apparently has issues with a supporting character supporting the main character. Now, I will say that he does seem a little underutilized, but I will also say that that's definitely not true. In this movie, Gordon seems to be more of a way that Batman's speech bubbles can come out. There is no reason for him to be talking in these scenarios if he was alone. There is no reason for him to convey evidence to us, watching the audience, because no one is there for him to be talking to. So now we give him someone for him to bounce off of. Do you see why this supporting character is there now, Ben? Do you see why we need supporting characters?
The plot is that all these people get killed. Batman uncovers it. He realizes that his dad was corrupt also, or that his dad engaged in corruption with Carmine Falcone. Finally, we get to the end. Paul Dano does it's such a ripoff of Seven. He gives himself up.
So are we going to say that The Dark Knight is a ripoff of Seven? Because I specifically remember the Joker giving himself in to the police so he can continue to do what he wants to do, but from behind jail, where everyone thinks, oh, we got him, we won. That's the whole point. It happens in a lot of movies, Ben. It happens in a lot of stories. Maybe you should watch or read some of them.
He doesn't get captured by Batman. Batman does not prevent a single one of these deaths. Batman, in fact, is complicit in one of the deaths by accident. And he doesn't actually capture the Riddler because he's clever. The Riddler gives himself up by sitting at a diner and getting arrested.
Nope, Batman loses. He completely loses in this movie. And that's not a bad thing. Because the whole movie, you are meant to believe that the arc Batman goes through is stopping the Riddler. When in reality, we'll get to what the actual arc is later, that's not the main goal of the story. That is not what Bruce is trying to do. That is not what Batman is trying to do. We'll get to it, but I guess just wait.
Then he unleashes a bombing of Gotham that essentially causes the flooding of the city. And Batman goes to the Madison Square Garden, where a mayoral event is now being held for the brand new mayor, who is an uplifting black female who has no other story or backstory, so she's really uninteresting.
I don't know how many pages of backstory each character needs to have for you to understand whether they're side characters, supporting characters, or main characters, but the mayor-elect doesn't need a backstory, because no, we don't give a fuck about her. She's not a character that we need to know about. She is an important figure, and that's all we need to know, because that's all her character needs to be. You're just mad because she's fucking black.
It starts to flood, and up on top, in the wings, are a bunch of Paul Dano's followers, are a bunch of the Riddler's followers who are all dressed like the Riddler, and they are shooting down into the crowd to try and kill members of the elite in Gotham City. And so Batman goes up there and he's beating people up. There comes a point where he's beating this guy, and he's really, like, maybe beating him almost to death. And he stops, and they take off that guy's mask, and they say, who are you? And the guy says, I am vengeance. Okay, now this is the theme throughout the film. Ooh, the theme. Okay, so in order to explain why this is a problem, you have to now understand the character of the Riddler. So it says right at the beginning of the movie, who is Batman? I'm vengeance, right? He's just on the streets and he's beating people up. And then people keep calling him Mr. Vengeance for no apparent reason. Like, we don't know why they're calling him that, because he never actually publicly says he's vengeance. It's in his creepy diary.
I'm vengeance.
This line is directly said to a group of roughly 10 people, who we all know are connected to every other gang in the city because criminals talk. And we know that because Batman has a reputation in this city because Penguin says so. He says that he's heard so much about the Batman because people talk. Which means that someone in this group of 10 people probably said something.
Which, again, is supposed to be a mirror image of the fact that the Riddler also keeps a Zodiac Killer-style diary. So they're supposed to be two halves of the same whole. Batman is beating up this follower of the Riddler's. He takes off his mask, and the guy says, "I'm vengeance." And suddenly Batman sees. Suddenly Batman realizes he can't be vengeance. That's not what he's meant to do. He's betrayed his mission. And so he then descends on an electrified cable because he's trying to stop people from being electrocuted by this flying electrical wire. And he cuts off the cable. He's holding on to it. He falls down into the water, a rebaptism.
Here we see Ben Shapiro learn about the concept that's called imagery.
He gets up, and then he proceeds to lead a bunch of people who are not really trapped, but kind of trapped, I suppose.
I don't know, I would argue being stuck under a bunch of rubble in a building that's filled with water as electrical wires fall into that water that you are stuck in is considered being trapped. Maybe that's different for you, maybe your definition is different, but I don't know, I'd argue that you're wrong.
And he leads them to, I guess, a safer place by carrying a torch. And then he goes up to the top of Madison Square Garden, and he is helping people be airlifted and medevaced out. And this is how he has learned fulfillment. So what is this movie about? This movie is about how fighting criminality does not actually help innocent people. He says this at the very beginning. He says, I'm not sure I'm doing any good. By fighting the criminals, crime is still up. It turns out that Batman has to stop being Batman. Batman has been missing it the whole time. What Batman really has to be is Superman.
Yes, because Superman is the only superhero to have ever saved someone in their entire life. Batman's never done that. No. Only Superman has done that.
Batman needs to go into areas like Madison Square Garden and not fight the criminals. He needs to go and lead people with a torch to a slightly safer area. He needs to help medevac people on the top of he needs to build Habitat for Humanity. He needs to join Jimmy Carter and build houses for homeless people. That's what Batman needs to be doing. This really is a sort of attack on the idea that fighting crime helps innocent people. It's an almost defund the police attitude toward what crime is.
Before I tear into the idea of what you said being terribly wrong, if there is any city, without getting too political here, if there is any city in the entire world that needs their police defunded, it's fucking Gotham City. What do you mean?
And it's an attack on the basic idea that individuals are capable of doing justice by finding bad guys and fighting them. Instead, apparently, individuals are only capable of doing nice things by helping little old ladies cross the street. It's this sort of mentality that has led to New York turning into Gotham City in the last couple of years, by the way.
Oh, you mean in a superhero movie, let's show kids that a way that they can help is, for example, if a catastrophe happens in this world, you can help the people, the victims of that catastrophe. You can be like Batman. You're right, we shouldn't show our kids that. You're right. We shouldn't have shown these morals, these ways to help people. We shouldn't show someone as cool as fucking Batman helping people. Because that's the wrong message. We should tell them that they should go fight psychopaths.
That's a fundamental betrayal of what Batman is.
This is where I knew immediately Ben Shapiro has never read a single Batman comic, has never watched a single Batman movie. I don't care how much you say you like The Dark Knight. There is no fucking way you think that Batman helping people is a fundamental, and I'm saying down to the roots of the character issue. You think that helping people goes against what the fundamental basics of a superhero is? Are you sure?
What makes Batman different from the Riddler and than any of these other criminals is these criminals target innocent people and Batman targets criminals. That's the basis of the character. The entire basis of the character is the cops are bad at targeting criminals because they're corrupt. Batman is good at targeting criminals because he's smart and because he's rich and because he's incorruptible. That's the entire basis of Batman. And they take all that and they flip it on its head because they don't like Batman.
Apart from the last sentence, Ben Shapiro is absolutely right. That is exactly what Batman is. The uncorruptible people's person. He is exactly what you just said. But for some reason, you're using that explanation to go against what you're saying. Like, you used the explanation of why I'm telling you you're wrong to say that I'm wrong.
And this is why I have real problems with the movie. I I kind of hate the movie. Like, the more I think about it, the more I get angry at it. Because they take the fundamental idea of what Batman is supposed to be, the protector of the innocent who targets the criminal, and they say that if he targets the criminal, this makes him no different than criminals. Because Paul Dano, who's the Riddler, is also targeting criminals. All the way up until the very end, when they have to just sort of add on this attack on Madison Square Garden and New York Broad Writ for no reason. He has no motivation for blowing up a bunch of trucks and flooding downtown. Like, none. He doesn't explain why he does it. He doesn't explain what the purpose of it is.
You're right. He never explained that the mistreatment he went through at the Wayne orphanage has shaped him. He never explained how much he despises Bruce Wayne for getting all that sympathy after Thomas Wayne died, and how all the orphans at the orphanage were completely forgotten. But poor Bruce Wayne, the rich kid, sitting in his tower, can be sorry for himself. It was never once explained. He never once explains how his hate for the Waynes festered and grew into his hate for all officials, politicians, corrupt individuals. Anyone with power is on the Riddler's hit list. So because he never explained those intentions I just said, I guess you're right. I have no idea why he would attack the mayor-elect with all of her officials. I have no idea, Ben.
All the way along, he's been saying, I'm exposing the true face of Gotham. Okay, that's a rationale. But what does that have to do with blowing up the city? They add that on just so that they can create a false distinction between Batman and the Riddler.
Why do horrible people do horrible things, Ben? A lot of them have reasons, but some of them just want to be remembered. The Riddler had his reasons. He had a bone to pick with Gotham. But he also wanted to be remembered, and he specifically says that to Batman before the bombs go off. And he is upset that he won't be remembered. And the second Batman says that he won't be remembered, he begins to break down. He physically breaks down in front of Batman. Just because the Batman says, you're not going to be remembered. You lost. You're done.
So that Batman can change his mission. So now Batman's mission is not beating up bad guys and stopping bad guys. Now Batman's mission is to be a firefighter. He's no longer a detective or a police officer. He's a firefighter. That's a betrayal. And it's a real problem. And that's my biggest issue.
You heard it here first, folks. Ben Shapiro doesn't like firefighters. Doesn't consider them to be heroes. In all seriousness, Benjamin. Can I call you Benjamin? Every single thought you have on Batman, you need to disregard. Because wherever you got it, they lied to you. Because I know for a fucking fact you didn't read or watch anything. So you got it from somewhere, and whatever you got it from lied. Batman is selfless. He is compassionate. And he loves the city of Gotham and the people that are in it. Ben, I'm going to show you a clip from Justice League Unlimited. It's animated, so you might not have seen it. Not a lot of people know about them. But in this clip, it explains exactly what Batman is. He is a loving protector of the people. Basically, there is a character in this scene who is practically a bomb. A psychic character who, if threatened, can literally just explode. And that little device you see on your screen right now is meant to kill the person.
Agreeing to. The only way to stop Ace for certain is to kill her.
But Batman doesn't kill. Why would he take up this responsibility? Well, because Batman cares. And he loves people. He wants to help people. You'll later find out that this girl is dying anyways. No matter what they do, this girl will die. Batman is the only one that can stop it. And that's why he chooses to be there. He isn't able to stop the death, but he is able to stop her from, quote unquote, going off like a bomb.
Batman.
Ace.
Did you like playing with my new Royal Flush gang?
Can't say that I did.
Yeah, they aren't any fun at all. I gave them their powers and they still hardly ever play with me.
Can't imagine why.
When I was little, Cadmus used to make me play all kinds of games, but they weren't any fun either. They'd strap me into their machines and poke wires into my brain. Ace, can you move this object with your mind? Yeah, I can move it. They weren't really games, you know. They were training me, turning me into a weapon for justice, they said. They got their weapon. I got cheated out of my childhood.
I know what that's like.
You do, don't you? You don't have to answer. I read your mind. That's how I knew you weren't going to use Mrs. Waller's weapon on me.
No, I wasn't.
You were going to try and talk me into fixing what I've changed. Before I die.
Yes.
I'm dying very soon.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Could you stay with me? I'm scared.
He sat with her until her time came.
The truth is, Ben, it was not uncharacteristic of Batman to care for someone. You just don't understand what makes Batman Batman. Any superhero would choose saving a life over stopping the villain. It's almost a cliche at this point. The superhero has the villain on the ropes. They can win. They can stop this movie 20 minutes into it. But there's someone in danger over there. And if they choose to stop the villain now, that person will die or get hurt. So they'll stop and they'll go help them. Allowing the villain to get away. Because that's what superheroes do. Batman is no exception. Batman realized he chose the wrong word to introduce himself as. He's not.
Vengeance.
Batman is justice. Which, if you watch the movie, Ben, one of the answers to the Riddler's riddles is justice. The answer is justice. And that is the conclusion of the movie. Batman realizes vengeance is not the answer. The answer is justice. That's what I need to be. That's what I need to represent. I need to not just fight these criminals, but I need to help people. I don't understand why you sit here and say you have a problem with Batman straying too far from his character, when all he does that you seem to have a problem with is save people. He's a superhero. And for the record, I don't think Robert Pattinson's Batman goes through the arc of learning to care for people. I think he learns that that's why he does it. Because I think that the second he sees the little boy whose parent died, who found his dad's body after the Riddler killed him, who's in the first few scenes of the movie, I think you immediately can tell Bruce can feel his pain. That's why anytime the kid is in a shot, Bruce's eyes are on the kid. He never takes his eyes off the little boy, because that little boy went through what he knows. That pain of losing his parents, Robert Pattinson himself even said that he portrays that pain through Batman and through Bruce Wayne in every single scene. Every single second. You can feel it through him. And I really think you can, especially with that little boy in the scene. At the very end of the film, when he falls into the water and he lights that torch and he goes to help the people out of the rubble, he reaches his arm into the rubble to pull someone that's not in the shot out. It's not to the mayor-elect. It's not to any of the other important officials. The first person he helps out of there is the little boy who lost his dad. The truth is, Ben, this is the most comic book accurate Batman we have ever seen, and you have never read a comic book.
Again, it's got a little bit of woke politics, but that's really not the problem. The problem is the broader woke orientation of the film. If the Nolan Batman was about the idea that you help innocent people by fighting criminality and provide an inspiration to people to fight criminality, if that's the idea of Batman, which it is, that's completely thrown on its head here.
So, I won't lie. I do not like the word vengeance used to describe Batman. It's not my favorite word. I think justice is a way better word to describe him. Him saying, "I am justice," is infinitely better. I think Batman perfectly describes the idea of justice. Not only does he beat up the criminals and the poor bastards of Gotham City that hurt the innocent people, but he also helps those innocent people in other ways than just stopping the bully from beating them up again. He also does sit there and help medevac them out. He does sit there and help the homeless. He is a hero, Ben. That's what heroes do. Now, I might be in the minority on this one. I don't like vengeance. I don't like that word. He is justice. And Batman learning to become justice instead of being vengeance is a perfect Batman story. This might have been his second year. Thomas and Martha Wayne might have already been dead. But this is Batman's origin story.
And that Batman has to be shown the error of his ways and learn to be a nicer human being. By the way, at the very end of the movie, Catwoman, who at no point has actually demonstrated any sort of moral bona fides. Like, I'm not sure she does a moral thing in the entire movie.
You're right. So why did you include Catwoman when you were naming all of the good characters that happen to be black? You just now said that she's not a good person. She has no event that shows you which side of the morality spectrum she sits on. She is morally ambiguous. We see that she is willing to kill, but when Bruce talks her out of it, she won't go through with it. You simply wanted to include Selina in the list of good characters that happen to be black, just so you can demonstrate how this movie has so much woke politics, and that's such a bad thing, when in reality, it's not true.
I never check my watch during movies, particularly not a Batman movie, and I check my watch at least twice during this film. It's better than Marvel, because everything's better than Marvel, because Marvel doesn't take characters seriously, and Marvel feels like cotton candy. This doesn't feel like cotton candy, it just feels like a fundamental betrayal of the character, which is just, it's lazy writing, and more than that, it's not nice to the audience. The audience wants to see Batman be Batman and be good at being Batman and know why he's being Batman. They don't want to see Batman learn the lesson that being Batman is bad.
Like I explained earlier, this movie is without a doubt an origin story. This version of Batman is not perfect like Christian Bale's version. He doesn't put on the suit and immediately know how to be Batman.
That defeats the purpose of going to a Batman film. Alrighty, so that is my review of The Batman. I know. A lot of people really like the movie because, hey, it's Batman. It's hard to dislike Batman. But folks, if you like this video, please like and subscribe.
That's a warning.